man, knowing it's going to be a sellout tomorrow night. You know what that place is like when it's packed out.
Man, it's so exciting to be back. The weather's perfect. Like not a cloud in the sky. Went out to a nice dinner at Luso last night. So I've been bragging to Jordan Cornette, Eric McLean, Eddie Royal, and all those guys, telling like Florida State's like a real college experience. So I'm actually happy that they set up a game for us to come to. Would have loved that Wake Forest matchup next week or in 2 weeks, but that would have been fun. But for me to come back, it's always nice because I was here for the spring game, and just the reception that I get from, you know, administration guys like yourself. You know, you guys have seen me grow, you know, when I was 17 as a recruit coming here. So it's like seeing family for me.
I assume memories just flood back when you walk past the practice field or walk in. I know the locker room's different than it was when you were here, but just this stadium, this area, do memories just flood back?
Memories come back like crazy, because even just walking to class, you know, on the campus, and, you know, seeing the circus and Leach down there, he's played basketball in the summertime. Like, this is my home. Like, this is really where I became a man. Rode past Seminole Legends, which is where I used to live in my junior year. So the memories are nonstop. And again, as someone who played here, has success here, like, I'm just so proud to be a Nole. And that's probably why you saw my reaction a few weeks ago against LSU, of course. But obviously I have to be objective in the job, but my allegiance will always lie here. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite moment from your time playing at Dome?
The Clemson game, senior year. Not even just our performance as a team or the fact that I played well, but like more so just that was a moment where I think that was Florida State was really back. You know what I mean? Like, we were able to really say, okay, like, this is legit now. You know, top 5 matchup, prime time. I think it was an ABC game, if I'm not mistaken. And we beat them here, and our crowd was into it. And we won the ACC championship that year. Obviously, the following year, we won the national championship. But I felt like that was our moment as a team and as a program to say, okay, we've arrived. You know what I mean? Like, we're here. Like, we're a legit team. And that was one of my fondest memories.
Does that feel like 10 years ago? Because it was 10 years ago this week, I think.
It does. Now that I have a little daughter and all that, it feels like 10 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy. You know, and flies by. You know, a lot of life has happened in between that time. So, yeah, it does feel like it flew by.
EJ, could you for kind of the formative years of Jimbo's tenure, and now we're kind of saying it's the formative years of Coach Norvell. Not to conflate the two, we'll see where this one goes, but do you see similarities?
You know, speaking of Jimbo's tenure, the thing that Jimbo had an advantage in the fact that he was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach before, you know, he became the head coach. Coach Norvell didn't have that situation. Coach Norvell also came into a situation where, you know, Florida State wasn't good. You know what I mean? And after Coach Taggart got fired and, you know, he was kind of taking over, the pressure was extremely high. You know, so we ended, you know, Coach Bowden's tenure as best we could. I know we won that bowl game against West Virginia that year. And Jimbo took over, but there are similarities. I just feel like, you know, the fact that Jimbo was a coach here on the staff before he became the head coach, I think really helped him out a lot because we already knew him, you know what I mean, and knew what he expected.
When did you guys as a team start to believe, oh yeah, man, we're really good. We're not just pretty good.
Right.
Was it that Clemson game? Was it the off season? Was it 2010? Like, when did that?
It was the off season. I remember running, you know, 110s over here on this turf field before we had this super nice practice facility. We didn't have the indoor.
Right, sure. Back in your day, right?
Yeah, back in my old day. But yeah, I mean, I remember being 115 degrees outside and like we're grinding and working out, and we knew we had a really good team, you know, and our 7-on-7s just as players was so competitive. And I felt like that's where we started to feel like, okay, man, we actually got like something special here. And then we started policing ourselves, the leadership factor. We were all, you know, adults in a way, we were mature. So myself, Vince Williams, Telvin Smith, like the leadership that we had on this football team, the accountability, Xavier Rhodes, LaMarcus Joyner, and then the pups were like Jameis and, you know, Eddie Goldman and Darby, like those were the pups. And so you just knew, man, like this is going to be special. This next 4 or 5 year run at Florida State, once we were like juniors and seniors, was going to be really good.
How big is that? Like, the talent level clearly isn't what it was when you guys were here. I mean, you had nothing but NFL guys, but the culture being instilled that Norvell is doing and trying to do. Can you see that, and how important is that to what he's trying to build here?
Yeah, I definitely see it. You know, sometimes it takes 3-4 years. It takes a couple recruiting cycles to get kids to buy into what you're preaching, to get those types of guys in your program. And I think we've seen that. I mean, Coach Norvell, I feel like, has done a great job. You know, it's not easy to win here. It's not easy to win in the ACC. And maybe nationally that's the narrative of, like, it's not as good of a conference as SEC. I disagree. You know, I think pound for pound we can hang with them as well as an ACC. So I think the things he's been preaching and the program is just trending in the right way. And even you go back to this LSU game, all odds were against them, and pretty much a neutral site, but it was a home game for LSU. And I felt like the entire game Florida State was locked in. They weren't making boneheaded mistakes. The moment wasn't too big for them. And that's where I felt like the program is starting to make that curve.
Is it cool, too, to see the excitement in the fan base? I mean, they sold out a game against Boston College, who's 1-2.
Right, yeah.
And they did bring a lot of people to LSU, or the New Orleans game.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. I mean, once you win here, fans are going to show up. You know what I mean? And when you lose here, they let you know, too. And so I felt like this was like the NFL, honestly. Like going from Florida State to Buffalo Bills, it really wasn't too different because the fan bases are very similar. They're very, very knowledgeable about football, and they understand it. You know what I mean? They know what it's supposed to look like because guys like Coach Rick had laid that groundwork. So, yeah, I mean, once you win here, Tallahassee, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So hopefully this team can keep it going.
And you mentioned LSU win, obviously. That was a big one. But last week on the road, when everything was going against you with the injuries for Florida State, to win that game, how big of a win was that to, prove the program's back?
Yeah, it was a big win, but also to have your backup quarterback come in and a situation where he probably didn't get a lot of reps with the ones that week. But, he stood in there, made some big throws, and just, took advantage of the opportunity. We don't know if he's going to start this game or not, but I have all the confidence in the world in Tate Rodemaker, and I think this team does as well. And I've been in that situation. When your number gets called, you got to go out there and play. And, you don't want to let your team down. It's not about you in that moment. You just want to go out there and service the offense and make plays when they can, and that's what Tate did.
Following up a little bit on that, when Christian went down at the end of the 09 season, what do you remember most about really stepping into that role to close up?
Yeah, I remember Coach Bowden sent me down in his office and just saying, "Beat EJ." That was the first thing he said. Because at that time, we had a bowl streak on the line. And that was all the talk. And I was like 19, so I was nervous. And I've been doing scout team all year. I had a couple of chances to play, my redshirt freshman year. But now I was a full-time starter. And I think our first start was against Wake Forest. So I just remember Coach Bowden calming me down in a way of just saying, "Hey, man, just beat EJ. We don't need you to do nothing special." He was like, "Don't worry about me and my legacy. Like, just go out there and you play your game." And that's one of those conversations I'll never forget.
As you've gotten to develop a relationship with Coach Norvell, both professionally and personally, what stands out about him to you that's kind of stuck with you?
He's an honest man. A lot of times in this business, you don't get people that are honest. Coaches aren't always honest. Sometimes coaches are self-seeking, trying to find their best next opportunity and things like that. And I really believe that Coach Norvell, practices what he preaches. And I know that he cares about these young men too, above everything. At the end of the day, you want, like I have children now, so when I send my kids off to play a sport or go to school, I want to know that the coach cares about them more than just being an athlete. And I think that's what Coach Norvell provides for these young men. But biggest thing is, he knows football. So I'm just excited now. His knowledge that he's been putting into his team is starting to show up with wins. And we'll just see how long he can keep it going.